Life is a roller coaster. Some people are afraid of certain parts, perhaps the sudden drops, maybe the parts where everything's upside down. How about the parts that go too fast? But the wise person learns to enjoy every moment, for God is the architect of the ultimate roller coaster. We have no idea where it's going. Too often we forget to enjoy it, and before we know it, it's over. The last year of my life has been turbulent. I feel it. And that's not just because I wrote this as I sat in an airplane flying miles above the earth. Maybe it's because in the span of 8 months, I went from a long-term relationship to breaking up, to entering a new relationship, to moving to a part of the country I'd never even been to before, to breaking up again, to being completely alone, to making a totally new set of friends, to moving again and becoming a first-time homeowner. All while maintaining my growing small business, Catholics for Hire. Hey there, my name is Will Deathridge. I consider myself a theologist. I'm a CEO, but most of all, I'm a guy finding his way to God's Holy Land through a turbulent life and a turbulent flight. Usually I don't share a ton of information about myself, but I've always felt called to educate people about theology. Theology, of course, is the study of God. God, according to the Judeo-Christian tradition, wants us to know about Him. If God didn't want to be known by us, then there would be no such thing as theology. Thus, relationship with God and our journey to relationship with Him is integral to theology. A theology devoid of encounter with God is a sterile, lifeless, useless theology. So, if I'm going to even begin to talk about theology, I must infuse my own journey into whatever it is I teach. Now, if you told me this time last year that I would be in Israel whilst preparing to move back from New Jersey to Washington, D.C. as a single man, I would have called you crazy. Heck, 2 weeks ago, I didn't even know this trip existed. Well, I knew that Footprints of God pilgrimages existed. Steve Ray, our tour guide, has been a wonderful client of my company since we started 2.5 years ago. What I mean is I didn't know that this specific trip from September 11th through the 20th existed. But a last-minute trip cancellation by a couple who could no longer attend, paired with me assisting Steve with a project at the exact right time, got me a spot on this pilgrimage. Some would say I was at the right place and the right time, but I think it would be more accurate to say that God put me in the right place at the right time. The news I would be traveling to the Holy Land came following a time of immense pain and confusion in my life. I won't go into much more detail regarding precisely what happened, but I hope whoever the couple was who canceled their trip eventually sees this video. I'm sure whatever reason for your cancellation tore you up. As difficult as that must have been, though, I at least hope you can find a silver lining in the fact that this has been one of the greatest hugs from God I could have ever felt, especially during such a tumultuous time in my life. I'm a big believer that when God gives you the grace of a blessing, you need to let that grace work through you so that grace can be multiplied. I suppose that's one of the goals of this series. I feel extraordinarily grateful to have been given the opportunity to go on this journey. And while I could have just presented a slideshow of my adventures or something like that, I feel it would be more meaningful to integrate my personal experience into a raw yet thoughtful way. Particularly, I hope to contribute to the discussion of how it feels and what it means to be a Catholic, especially a Catholic man in a wacky, sometimes hostile world. And what better place to explore that than the Holy Land? The night before my flight, I could hardly sleep. I was pretty excited and still in a bit of disbelief. I'm honestly still in a bit of disbelief as I record this from my hotel. I've been on plenty of pilgrimages before, but none like this. The plane ride was good. They served us dinner and I fell asleep watching some Coen Brothers movies, great directors. We had a layover in Frankfurt, Germany. The view of the Rhine River from the plane was sublime. Between flights, I caught up on some emails. I'm formally taking the week off from work, which is the first time since I started my business. Honestly, it feels like dropping your kid off at school for the first time. I'm sure I'll have some separation anxiety, but I'm sure my project managers will do a great job. Shout out to Mary Ryan and Alexa Harbor. The total time from JFK in New York to the hotel we are staying at now, including a bus, was about 19 hours or so. Steve, of course, will be guiding our tour along with Amer, a man who grew up in Nazareth. His family has been in the region for hundreds of years. Steve has been leading these tours for decades, and he's done everything he can to make this the ultimate pilgrimage experience. For example, on the bus, we could buy rosaries made from local olive wood, which we will take to sites of almost every mystery of the rosary. This will be a truly remarkable experience. Even the food we had so far, which was generously provided to us by the hotel staff who kept the cafeteria open until, 11 p.m. our time, was phenomenal. They even told one of us, if you thought that dinner was good, just wait till breakfast. The biggest advice I've been given is to listen to God throughout this trip. Now, I'm a big believer that God always speaks to us. In secular terms, you could say that the universe or reality speaks to us. Sometimes, though, reality shakes us to our core, and those moments aren't for us to decide. Just as reality captivates us when we least expect it, so can God. But the thing about holy sites is there's something so intimate about them. It's like trying to feel heat on a stove when it's turned up to boil versus keeping warm. That quest for spiritual fire is also something I hope to share throughout this series. Special thanks to Steve and Janet Ray's Footprints of God Pilgrimages for being the conduit of God's grace. I'll see y'all tomorrow.